So these cheap handheld mixers are pretty much useless for anything else than occasionally whipping up some cream, and as soon as you try to do some proper work with them, like kneading bread dough, they just tend to fall apart. Therefore, it should be little surprising that I've got 5 of them lying around, and because it would be really wasteful to just throw them away, after all they've all got a perfectly fine motor inside, I'm going to show you how to make a small strip sander using a hand mixer as a motor. I actually made a prototype of this machine almost 5 years ago. I've still got some of the parts, but unfortunately I didn't take any pictures whatsoever, so the only thing I can show you is the SketchUp model I designed afterwards. In the end, it's supposed to look roughly like this. The hand mixer is hidden inside this box here, and as usual I'm going to build the entire thing using mostly scrap materials. Now obviously using an entire hand mixer as a motor instead of just taking the motor out of it is kind of a waste of space, but honestly these hand mixer motors are a thing of their own. They've got exposed live contacts everywhere, and trust me, the 5-speed switch is something you don't want to deal with. So for all those of you who are not comfortable dealing with high voltage, this is certainly the best solution. I don't really know where else to put this clip, but I also wanted to thank every one of you who subscribed to my channel so far. I really appreciate it, and if you're watching this because you like my videos and you've not subscribed yet, feel free to do so. Anyway, back to the hand mixers. So preferably it should have a flat bottom, that just makes it much easier to mount it inside the sander, so this gives me only these 2 as an option, and since I really like this one, it's very smooth and silent running, I'm going to pick this terrible blue one. This one's got 250 watts and I really hate it. Least favorite first, that's my policy. No, actually it's fine, I just want to use this one on a better project. And with this very important question out of the way, it's finally time to cut 2 of the only 3 structural components the entire machine is made of out of some pieces of chipboard you might actually recognize from my last video. Yep, these are chunks of our old couch. Before we attach this part to the base, I need to glue in these bolts that the table is going to screw onto later on. And while the glue dries, we can start modifying the hand mixer. Yeah, you see, that's what I was talking about. There is live contacts everywhere, here and here and here, so if you were to put this motor into a wooden housing, you'd need to insulate all of them, because I don't think it's a good idea to trust wood as an insulator. And then the switch is almost entirely made of live contacts, and you can't even really insulate them because they've got to move, so I don't even know where you would mount this thing. But theoretically you could get rid of the switch entirely by just wiring it up to run on 1 speed only, but that's kind of a shame if the motor is capable of running 5 speeds. So anyway, I'm going to remove the turbo and the eject buttons and one of the gears out of the warm drive, because those will be useless as of now. With everything taken apart anyways, it's always a good idea to clean everything up a little bit and put new grease on. Something else worth noting is that if the hand mixer you want to use has got teeth broken out of one of the gears, it's absolutely necessary to remove that one. Don't worry if it's the right one though, because you can just interchange them and put the remaining one on the right side of the motor. You think it still works? I think so. Yeah, it's as loud as it always was! Frankly, it should be illegal just how loud these are. 5 minutes whipping cream and your ears fall off. You might have noticed that I drilled a few extra holes into the housing to improve airflow. That's because cooling is kind of shit on this thing. Whatever. The next step is to join these 2 parts. For now I'm using only screws, but later I'm going to glue it as well. Now, the way you mount the hand mixer to the machine really depends on the specific model you use, so I figured out that to get this thing on here in a way that the output shaft is perpendicular to this surface, it needs to sit on a piece of 10mm plywood in the back and on its plastic housing in the front, because if I just put it on its belly like I had intended, the output shaft is leaning very slightly forward, which is obviously not what we want. So I'm going to put it on like this. And by the way, this output shaft is just one of the dough hooks cut off. To glue the plywood onto the mixer, I'm using this super sticky hot glue, which is supposed to even stick to metal. And since I don't know if I can really trust it to hold up that well, I'm doing something I definitely don't recommend doing: driving screws directly into the housing of the hand mixer. Now keep in mind that there is no live contacts near this corner inside the mixer, and the screws are going to be covered from all sides, so there is no way of touching them whatsoever. Once it's clamped on and adjusted to get the output shaft centered in the hole, I'm gluing on these two blocks to make sure it doesn't slide around. I also added this block with a groove underneath, which allows me to zip tie on the mixer to make sure it never comes loose again. But before I glue it on there for good, I need to cover up all these unnecessary holes to make sure that the cooling air passes over the motor. Duct tape. Problem solved. And to finish it up, I need to unscrew it from the base, that's why I didn't glue it on earlier, and squirt hot melt glue all around it. Nah, that's not coming off anytime soon, I don't think. Anyway, it's finally time to do the lower wheel. Mounting the hand mixer to the machine is admittedly one of the more complex parts of the design, especially since it's unique to every hand mixer, but now let's do something more interesting. Both wheels are going to be made out of plywood instead of spruce like on my prototype, so I'm going to use 2 layers of this 15mm pine plywood because it's cheaper, and 1 layer of 12mm Baltic birch. These holes help getting the piece centered around one axis, although that might not be necessary if you use scraps that aren't just 2mm wider than the overall diameter of the wheel. Now, these hand mixer attachments have a very annoying diameter of 5.5mm, and the only 5.5mm drill bit I have is this one, and it has tendency to wander, making the hole bigger than it should be. So what I'm gonna do is pre-drill the hole with the 5mm drill bit, and then ream it out using the 5.5mm one. Yeah, drawing on the circle would better have been done before drilling out the hole. That blade really needs sharpening. Although the squished portion here would make a very nice key to prevent the wheel from spinning on the shaft, I need to grind it off because it doesn't fit through the ball bearing. I'm also cutting off the stupid knob on the end and grinding a new keyway. Now I can press fit the wheel on the shaft, pushing it in just far enough as not to touch this plate when I insert it all the way into the hand mixer. And by the way, the Baltic birch needs to face the mixer because that's where the ball bearing is gonna go afterwards. Kind of. I just realized a big problem. It's not gonna work because the ball bearing doesn't fit past this stupid keyway on the shaft. So what I could do is either grind down this keyway just far enough as it needs to clear the inner diameter of the ball bearing, but that would risk stripping out the plastic keyway inside the hand mixer, which is definitely not what I want, so I need to pull this out again and slide on the ball bearing before pressing on the wheel. Well, things like that do happen. I could have easily covered it up by simply editing out some of the clips, but I thought I'd leave them in to show you the kind of things I mess up sometimes. Driving a slightly rusty nail into the keyway should prohibit any slippage of the wheel or of the shaft depending on your point of view. Having the ball bearing sitting loosely on top of the wheel is kind of annoying because it's gonna go haywire as soon as I turn on the drill press, so I need to tape it to the chuck before I start turning the wheel to its final shape. That looks like it's going to fit. Well, lower wheel done. It's got a nice little crown and the ball bearing should fit really nice and tightly. And at that point, I'll wrap up this video here, even though admittedly I didn't really get too much done, but I got a regular day job now. I'm a baker, by the way, just in case you're wondering. So I can't commit to YouTube full-time anymore. Don't worry though, I'm not done with YouTube, it's just my everyday life is pretty much all over the place right now, so it might take me some time to get used to and find the new time to film videos, so I'm not exactly sure when the next video will come out, but in theory, I should easily be able to get back to my 1 video per month upload schedule, so nothing's really gonna change for you guys except that I'll be able to do some of the much more interesting, slightly higher budget videos on my bucket list. Nonetheless, I'll continue using as much garbage as possible to build my projects just because that's what I like to do and that's what I'm used to. Now, personal stuff aside, one thing I definitely forgot to mention is that you're absolutely not required to modify the hand mixer at all, as long as it works fine mechanically. I just did it because I wanted to get rid of the friction losses from the useless gear, and also the turbo switch could be much more useful anywhere else than inside the hand mixer. Anyway, it's 7:22 in the morning. I'll see you next time. Bye.